Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming or Battlefield-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. I'll get the formalities out of the way real quick. If you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a YouTube message. The first question for today comes from Ben, and it is, what do you think of the idea of a dead man's trigger for C4? It basically acts like some kind of pressure release thing that activates when the pressure is released. I guess that's what a pressure release would mean. We all hate being killed when we're about to detonate that C4 on a tank. Maybe this could solve our problem. So the thing about C4 is that it is a very high risk reward type of gadget in Battlefield 4. You do a lot of damage if you're able to get it onto a vehicle, and you can take them out instantaneously, but the risk is that you have to get up to the tank, you have to place it down on it, you have to be sneaky, and if in that entire process someone shoots you from behind, the tank driver realizes you're there, he runs off or shoots you with his massive cannon, you're not going to be able to secure the kill. And if they made it so that there was a dead man trigger, so basically all you really had to do was place the C4 on the vehicle and then you got a 100% guaranteed kill, I think it would take a little bit too much away from that high risk reward type of balancing that DICE had put into the game. Like honestly, if they did go down this path, C4, I don't want to say it would be exponentially better by any means, but you would see a lot more tanks being slain by this device. It would be 100% easier to take them out because you wouldn't have to worry about getting away from the vehicle or surviving the engagement, because once you get the 2 C4 on a vehicle, you get a 100% guaranteed kill. And I just don't know if I would like that system. And honestly, with the slams for the engineer class, this has been something that I've never really agreed with. If you're not aware, with the slams, as long as you get 3 slams onto an enemy tank, any type of vehicle, you get a guaranteed kill once they accelerate. There's literally nothing that they can do at that point. If you die, the slams stay there, and they basically just have to abandon the vehicle. Maybe there's some way that I'm not aware of right now that allows you to get away from it. But pretty much, it's a guaranteed kill for the engineer that just places slams onto the tank. And while I know some people like that system because they like to get a free kill, for the most part, it feels a little cheap. It's like, yes, you did take the time to get 3 slams onto the tank, but you didn't survive the engagement. You didn't detonate them, you died. And the fact that the mechanics are in place that allows them to stay on the vehicle and then detonate seems a little cheap. And so if this was something that was also transferred on over to C4, where you only require 2 C4s to take out a vehicle, I think it would be pushing things a little bit too far, and that risk-reward type of system, it wouldn't be as potent as it currently is. The next question is, don't you think that the minigun in Battlefield 4 are too overpowered, because after the latest patch, I've been killed a lot because of the minigun? Do you think that DICE will buff it in the next patch? Do I think that they'll buff it in the next patch? I'm assuming what you mean is, will they nerf it in the next patch? But no, I actually really like where the miniguns are right now, especially for the transport helicopter. Like, before this patch, the transport helicopter minigun was almost useless. It was somewhat effective at taking out attack helicopters, especially if you're playing on something like Siege of Shanghai, and if you were with a good pilot who could duck behind cover, it was a fantastic little combo. But going for infantry down on the ground was nearly impossible. Like, you could eventually take people out, because you're a moving target, or you're moving around, and they're usually moving around down on the ground, trying to secure a kill with a minigun that feels like it's just shooting marshmallows at your enemy wasn't a very effective tactic or a very effective weapon. And so in the recent patch, I think DICE has really hit the nail on the head with this one. It does a lot more damage, I'll get at that, but at the same time, they've also made it so that it overheats a lot faster. So you're not able to spray as many bullets down range. You have to manage the minigun heat system a little bit more, and it just seems to work really well. And what I find amusing about this entire thing is that before the patch, no one complained about dying to the transport helicopter, but now that it's somewhat viable on the battlefield, and now you actually have to watch out for people that are in the transport helicopter and using the minigun effectively, all of a sudden, it's blatantly overpowered. Like, no, it's a useful weapon, it's a useful vehicle now on the battlefield. It requires teamwork. There has to be someone piloting that knows what they're doing. There has to be a gunner that has at least an idea of how to compensate not only for the movement of the vehicle itself, with people down on the ground. Like, it's just viable. It's not overpowered, at least in my opinion. Maybe my opinion will change here in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months if we see some people completely abusing it and it becomes the god vehicle up in the sky. But I don't think that's going to be the case. There's still an incredible amount of things that can take out a transport helicopter. It's a very slow moving vehicle. It's not very maneuverable. And so yes, it is more viable. Yes, you're probably going to die to it more frequently, but at the same time, I love what DICE has done with it. It now feels like a viable vehicle, and I would not change a thing. The next question comes from Henry, and it is, would you like to see a class balancing thing that is in place in Team Fortress 2? Like on a 64-player server, you would have only 8 medics, support, engineer, and recons per team. I think this would be good so everyone isn't playing medic and a support could drop ammo. This has been something that I've heard every once in a while. A lot of people hate it when they're playing on Rush or a game mode that requires a lot of teamwork, but their entire squad or their entire team is playing as recons. They're in the backfield just trying to snipe people. They're just trying to secure as many kills as they possibly can, but not actually playing the objective. And I realize that those games can be infuriating. It seems like no one actually wants to play the objective. It goes against everything you would think that the Battlefield franchise is all about. But at the same time, I don't think that this is the way to go about it. When I used to play Team Fortress 2, one of the things that I hated about certain servers is when they restricted the amount of snipers or the amount of classes that you could have on your team. Like, I loved playing as the sniper. It was the one I was the most effective at. I was able to play somewhat aggressively. I still played the objective, but that's what I wanted to play when I played Team Fortress. Like, that's the main reason why I played that game. And when I joined a server that didn't allow me to play it because our team was full, I didn't really feel like playing that anymore. I basically just left to another server. I was like, screw this. I'm not going to have fun with it. I don't feel like playing as a medic or a pyro. I'm going to go to a different server. I'm just going to completely avoid this like the plague. And while I'm sure some people like that idea because then it would get more class diversity on these maps, at the same time, I think that this is just more of a band-aid fix to a more systemic problem with class balance. Because if you have everyone running around as a medic, that usually means that the medic is probably overpowered or more powerful than all the other classes, and the other classes don't feel as viable. And honestly, the best way to go about this is try to make it so that all the classes feel equal in power. And for the most part, I would say that DICE has done a phenomenal job with that in Battlefield 4. Like back in Battlefield 3, the medic class was clearly easily one of the best in the game. They had the best gadgets, reviving people was instantaneous, it revived them to full health. Like their weapons were amazing and it was easily one of the most popular classes in the game. But in Battlefield 4, I actually think that DICE has done a decent job at trying to close that power discrepancy gap. Like, sure, I still think that the medic and the engineer are some of the best in the game, but at the same time, I still think that DICE has done a good job at elevating the power of the recon and the support. And so, in my opinion, yes, you would see a lot more class diversity on the battlefield if a system like this was implemented, but at the same time, I feel like it's more of a band-aid fix. It doesn't really address the issue that is in place, that some classes feel more powerful than the others, and so I wouldn't want this to be in place. And really, the biggest issue I have with it is that I spent $60 on Battlefield 4 to play however I want. Like, if it made it so that I did not have the option to play the class that I wanted to at this moment, I would be a little upset by that. Like, when I play a video game, I assume, at least for the most part, I'm going to be able to play how I want to. I mean, sure, I will run around as the class that I think is appropriate. Like, if we need medics, if we need to play as a support, I'll run as a support. But if I'm in the mood for playing as a recon and the server is restricting me and not allowing me to do so, I get a little annoyed by that. Like, I spent my good hard-earned money on this video game. I buy the premium service. I don't want to say I'm entitled to play however I want, but that's exactly how I feel. Like, I spent my money on this. I should be able to play the game however I want with whatever class. The next question is, do you still think that Staff Shell is overpowered? Because Active Protection can't stop it and it flies straight over the map, so many guys just sit and snipe other tanks. I was under the impression that this was exactly how the Staff Shell was supposed to perform. Like, in my mind, it's supposed to be a long-range sniping tank weapon. It's supposed to take out targets at a distance. It's got that pinpoint-like accuracy. It's gonna lock on at the last second, so if you're off by a little bit, it's still gonna hit the target. But the downside of it is that it doesn't do a lot of damage. They nerfed it. It used to do, I want to say 25 damage per shot, but they nerfed it down to 22. It's been a long time since I've used the staff shell because I truly do believe that it's nowhere near as effective as it used to be. Like, if you get into a tank-on-tank combat conflict and you're up close and personal, or, you know, maybe even 50 meters away, I would much rather be using my main shell. It's going to do an incredible amount of damage to the enemy tank, and if they're just spamming me with the staff shell, sure, they don't have to be as accurate. It's going to be a little bit easier for them to keep consistent with all of their shots. But at the same time, as long as I'm a decent tank driver and I know what I'm doing, I'm able to line up my shots, I'm probably going to win that firefight if they continue to use the staff shell. And so, in my opinion, I think what they've done is great for the staff shell. It's effective at taking out targets at a distance. It's not so great when they start to close the gap on you. And the trade-off of that is that you also are not effective at taking out infantry units. Like, if an infantry rounds the corner on you and you're using the staff shell with the main shell, you're gonna have a hard time taking them out. And so it's that type of risk-reward system that I think is great for Battlefield, and so I do not think that they're gonna nerf it, and I honestly wouldn't want them to. But that's about it for today's Sunday Mailbox, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, if you would like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below or by sending me a YouTube message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.